So this is my 19.1 assignment. For my first scenario, I chose to do windsurfing. For the environmental considerations, strengths, some of the strengths, the HSE, their mission is to prevent things from happening in the workplace, like injuries or illness, and that's just done throughout Great Britain. You can see in this scenario that it links in quite well with the AALA. You can see that association that was used in this scenario was Hove Lagoon for a college trip, and the association did actually have the correct licensing in place to take the sessions and the right sort of qualifications, etc. Some of the weaknesses, the safety equipment and the personal protection equipment, this was not checked properly and sufficiently. However, like I say, they do have the correct qualifications to do this sort of activity, the windsurfing, but they haven't actually put it into practice and looked at the safety equipment of the participants. For example, you can see in the scenario that someone actually had a buoyancy aid that wasn't the right fit for them. It was too big, which meant that it was loose, and if they were to fall in the water and they couldn't swim very well, the buoyancy aid would just come straight off, and it wouldn't really aid anyone very, very sufficiently. The safety considerations, one of the strengths was the flora and fauna. So this is based around seawater still, however it is like in a man-made sort of pit. The water used is seawater, so it does still allow for example, fish could still live in the water, so they haven't actually affected the habitat of any living animals or living species that were in the water. Also, plants could still grow, so they weren't damaging the habitat of that either as well. The weakness was, or is, that it's the construction of facilities, so it is something that's man-made, which means that perhaps some of the countryside that was there may have been affected and may have been built on to create this sort of pool that it is, so that people can windsurf with just a shallow sort of water, and obviously then that lowers the risk of someone perhaps drowning as it's very shallow. So the risk assessment for windsurfing, if the buoyancy aid was to fall off, like I said, and they were unable to swim, this could cause them to drown. It will affect the participant, and however they did have obviously safety measures in place with the checking of the equipment, but they didn't actually fulfill or put into practice the equipment checking. So the severity was 3 and the probability is 1, because obviously in other circumstances, perhaps when they had a smaller group, because there was quite a big group of 16, 17-year-olds, which can be quite a lot to handle for one person. In a different situation, they should actually check the equipment, so the probability of it happening is quite small, so this leaves the risk rating as 3. Perhaps next time, an extra thing they could do, so another suggested measure would be following all the procedures and making sure that it doesn't happen again. So another hazard is someone could fall off and bang their head on the board. This will affect their participant again, and an existing measure that they had was that they should explain that the board will be slippery, or they should explain the board will be slippery, so that they should get on and off, the participants should get on and off with awareness and caution. So the severity of it is 2. Obviously that could vary depending on whether someone was knocked unconscious in the water, where the severity would be 3, or if they just bang it and get a bruise, that's obviously a 2. The probability again is 1, as they should be wearing the correct footwear, which is the suggested measure that could be put in place, making sure that they give out footwear as opposed to letting other people wear their own footwear, and the risk rating is 2. So the second scenario is for climbing. The strengths for the environmental considerations again is personal protective equipment. This is because they are made aware of obviously everything that they should have on and what they should be wearing. Doing this means that obviously when on the wall they can manoeuvre themselves properly without any injury. So obviously people were given helmets if they felt like they were going to fall off or they were scared about perhaps doing it. The correct footwear was given out, and they were also made aware of obviously the grips on the wall, as it was done like on a specific site. It wasn't just out in the world, it was outside, but it was done in controlled circumstances. The weaknesses were that people weren't actually made clear of the hazards and the risks. Obviously, being a primary school group, they just want to get on with it and do it. And I think that the person looking after them may have been influenced by the children just wanting to get on with the session, which meant that they didn't actually go through the hazards and the risk assessments. Obviously, this can lead to a lot of danger being caused, and to the primary school children, that could leave them prone to being hurt, and also obviously it would affect the person taking the session, as if anything was to happen, that would then hold them liable for the injury that may be caused if there was one. Again, constructions of facilities for strength in the safety considerations. This is because they have actually used rocks that were already out in the countryside, so they haven't tampered with that area. They haven't had to cut down trees or open up anywhere. It was they used an area that was already there and just exploited it a bit and made it into a facility they could use, but they are still using natural resources for the rocks, so it's not man-made. The countryside code obviously aims to stop visitors and other people that use the outside, because this obviously means that there'll be no problems with. In this scenario, they do follow the countryside code, as they don't actually let people enter anywhere that's coned off or marked off. So they've just literally got a section of the countryside to do it on, or the nature reserve to do it on, and they don't let anyone go out of them sort of boundaries. The weakness is NNR. This is National Nature Reserves. However, they did stop people from entering the marked off area. Some people did actually pick up animals and stuff that was in their area. So obviously this could affect the animals. It could lead the humans exposed to perhaps some of the diseases that the animals will have. And also it means that they may have disrupted the habitats, or something to do with the animals sort of lifestyle, and may have tampered with that and then disrupted them, which can obviously leave the animals quite agitated, and then they may move away or something like that. So the first hazard is jumping off the wall and landing awkwardly. Obviously, with them being school children, this more than likely happen. It would affect the participant and also the existing control measures that are in place at the moment. Are making sure they don't jump off the wall, obviously telling them before, like prior to them actually taking part, that obviously jumping off the wall can lead to serious injury, like breaking a leg. So severity is 2. Obviously there will be extremes, situations where it could be 3 or could be less. Obviously if it's just like a grazed knee or something, that's only going to be a 1 for severity. But the probability of it happening, especially with an age group like this, is 2, which leads to the risk rating being 4. Suggested measures for improvement: they could give demonstrations on how to come down the wall, so obviously the correct way in which you should get off the wall. So wrong footwear, so they could lead to slipping, falling off the wall. This again will affect the participant. Make sure that the participants, through the existing measures, make sure that participants have the correct footwear on before they actually do the climb. Don't let them climb the wall if they haven't got the right footwear. Perhaps some people may have to share lack of sizes, etc. But make sure that they do not climb the wall unless the correct footwear is on. So severity is 2. Again, it can vary, but 9 times out of 10 it will be just 2 for severity, because it may just lead to a graze on the knee or like a bruise. But again, the probability is 2, because people are so interested in climbing the wall straight away, they don't even think about changing the shoes. And obviously with 30 students and only 1 instructor, you can't really look after all 30 at once. Again, demonstrations, this will just help with obviously them working out how they've got to move their feet, and how they put their feet on the grips correctly, and how they manoeuvre themselves.